Hey, Ira Baptist Church and friends. I'm coming to you on Friday with these videos. Really, these are just things I've been kind of thinking about, mulling over in my mind, and doing these videos makes me kind of sort them out and organize them in my mind, but also just kind of talk to you and share with you kind of where the Lord is working on me and different things that I'm learning. They've been good for me, they've been beneficial for me, and I hope they're the same way for you. And so this week, I want to talk to you about how the coronavirus is pointing us to God in a way maybe we're not anticipating it, or maybe we're not quite fully seeing it yet. Because one of the things about the coronavirus that's happened, and I'm sure you've noticed it, if you're in Scurry County like most of us, we are in a shelter in place. We are holed up at our houses, or supposed to be holed up in our houses, except to leave for the essential things that we need. Everybody, I think, is doing social distancing, where you're staying far away. You're not going out if you don't need to go out. Well, why? Well, it's because we don't want to get others sick. We don't want to get our family sick. We want this thing to die and stop spreading around, because we have hospitals that are overrun with patients. We've got people that are dying rapidly from this thing, and the latest projections on that are extremely high, but who knows what to believe with any of that stuff. There's an air of confusion with it all. And so I think one of the interesting things that the coronavirus is doing is it's pointing out to us a way that we're supposed to love our neighbor. But why? Why should we care who gets sick from this virus and who doesn't? Why should we care if it's killing off a lot of people or if it isn't? Why should we care if those with compromised immune systems are more susceptible to death or severe reactions to this virus as opposed to those who aren't? Well, the truth is, there's something inside of all of us that knows that there is a right and that there is a wrong, that there is a good and that there is a bad. Well, how do we know what is right and wrong? How do we know what is good and bad? I mean, if we have just evolved up to this point and are just a process of the world kind of coming into existence, then it makes no sense that we would get here, and natural selection would tell us that we should just leave behind the weak and just breed ourselves into this kind of more superior group of people who don't have those compromised immune systems. But that's not how we feel about it. That's not why our communities are shutting down. That's not why our governors and our mayors and our president is telling us to stop gathering together in these large groups to limit the spread of this virus. No, we care about others. We have a concern about others. We have a standard by which we're supposed to live by. Well, how do we know what that standard is? Well, for the Christians, we believe that God has revealed this standard to us in His Word. And in Matthew chapter 20, verse 30 and 31, Jesus responding to the scribes saying, what is the greatest commandment? And so Jesus quotes the Shema, and then He says in verse 30, and you shall love the Lord your God with your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor. There's no other commandment greater than these. So they say, what's the greatest commandment? And Jesus says, I'll give you the two greatest commandments. They're going to summarize the whole law. Love the Lord your God with absolutely everything that you have, with all of that you are. Everything about you should be about loving the Lord. And then second, you love your neighbor as you love yourself. You care for your neighbor. You don't just disregard those around you. Well, then the question for us comes to, well, how do we know how to love? What does that exactly mean for us? What is love? How is this something that we know how to do? Well, in 1 John chapter 4, verse 19, John says this, we love because He first loved us. If anyone says, I love the Lord and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. Do you see it? There's the truth there. That we are not able to perfectly love God. We're not able to perfectly love our neighbor. In fact, we are rebels who have run from the Lord. We have broken God's commands. We have broken God's covenant. We have broken the relationship that we have with God. And God could have easily looked at us as humans and just said, I am done, and walked away, and He would have been perfectly just and perfectly righteous. He would have not changed His character at all. Yet instead God looks and He says, I love them. They're made in my image. And instead of abandoning us and walking away, he comes to us. And he sends Jesus, who lives a perfect life, doesn't break any of God's laws, doesn't break any of God's commandments, doesn't break the relationship with God. Yet he dies a death that he doesn't deserve. But he does die a death that we deserve. And the gospel tells us that this is good news. It's good news because Jesus is our sacrifice, our atonement. He takes our place. That's the gospel. So now we have felt the love, if we're believers in Jesus Christ, the love of God is that while we were still sinners, Christ loved us. And so the gospel is not then about how great our love is. It is about the love that God has shown us and how much we can reflect that love to others. Let it flow through us and course through our veins. And so in a time, in an era when everybody is panicked, in a time, in an era where everyone is hoarding and stockpiling things, in a time, in an era where it's really easy to just either hole up and be scared for your job, be scared for your future, be scared for your family, or to hole up and just not give a care and watch Netflix or Hulu or whatever Lion King series you guys are watching now for as long as you're wanting to watch it and just not care. What the gospel compels us, if we're believers, to do is to love God with everything because he first loved us. And to flow that love to our neighbors in ways that are different and unique while we can't physically gather together. Isn't that a beautiful picture of God's design for the world that doesn't change in the midst of a pandemic? See, we as Christians have hope. We have hope that this is not just some virus spreading through the country and taking things out at will. We have hope that God is sovereign and in control. That he is good and that he cares for us, and that if we're believers, we are held in his hand and we cannot be plucked from it. And so we have no fear in this world. Instead, we can have love for our neighbors at our expense because of the love that God has first shown us. So go. Stay at your home. Love your neighbors. Love the Lord. Use this as a time to be refreshed and renewed in the good news of Jesus Christ.